I think he's probably still trying to figure out where his future lies in terms of not only the club he plays for, but the position he plays in, and, how well regarded he is in the squad that he'll obviously choose to play for next season. The newsletter I wrote about Kimmich recently basically dove into the stats and basically took a look at his playmaking stats. And the way I described it actually to someone today on Blue Sky was he's a world-class jack of all trades. And that might come across as a negative, but it's not. It's what he has always been, and it's what he's always proved to be a useful player at Bayern. That's why he's remained a Bayern Munich player. He hasn't remained a Bayern Munich player because he's the best central midfielder in the team. He's not the best right back in the team. He's not the best central defender in the team, whatever else you want to describe it. He's just always been a world-class, useful player. Now, he is a very good playmaker, I should say. He's still probably one of the best in the Bundesliga, but I was comparing him to guys like Kevin De Bruyne, who are out-and-out playmakers. That's what they are. It's what they've always been defined as at world-class standard, and Kimmich has never been that guy. So I guess the argument I was making was, well, if Bayern Munich were theoretically looking to build their entire team around this guy going forward, and he was going to be the linchpin of that midfield, and he was going to be the playmaker in that midfield, which he has been this season, I said I think that's a bit of a risk, because at Bayern Munich, you want a world-class playmaker as your playmaker. And Kimmich just isn't a world-class playmaker. He's a world-class jack of all trades. He's a very good central midfielder. He's a very good defensive midfielder. He's a very good box-to-box midfielder. Very good playmaker. He hasn't really pigeonholed or specialised in that role to the extent that we would call him as a world-class player. And I guess the obvious comparison is maybe Toni Kroos and what he went on to become as a player. And I think that's a kind of player that has always kind of overshadowed Kimmich in his career, both for club and country. And I think that's necessary context, because I think he as a player probably wants to play for a club that do think he's a world-class playmaker, who do think he should be sitting there calling the shots in that midfield. And maybe he thinks he'll get that elsewhere. Maybe he thinks my old friend Hansi Flick is in charge of Barcelona. They look like they've kind of turned things around. Maybe they'll need a central midfielder. Maybe Hansi Flick's on the phone to him saying, hey, come play for me. You can play alongside Pedri and Gavi until you're 35 and you won't have anything to worry about. Maybe there's some Premier League clubs who are looking at him as well, who could be interested in signing him. And maybe Kimmich is just thinking, well, I've got options to consider here, because Bayern Munich can say all they want about how much they want to keep him, but if you look over the last 4 or 5 years, you don't even have to go that far back. Last season under Thomas Tuchel, he was a player who was his value to the team was seriously questioned. I don't know, I guess from the player's point of view, I can understand why Kimmich maybe is having second thoughts, or at least not immediately commit himself to Bayern. And according to these reports, that's why Bayern have pulled their contract offer, because he didn't immediately jump and say yes when they began negotiations.